Over the years, I've paid shared hosting companies to host my websites and email. One of the things I appreciated as an end user, and occasionally as a reseller, was the ability to manage all aspects of my hosting, like DNS, mail, and server config, through a hosting control panel such as cPanel, Plesk, or some provider's homegrown solution. If you're self-hosting and want similar capabilities without the licensing fees, take a look at CyberPanel. It's a free hosting management panel that you install on your own server. CyberPanel makes it easy to set up the proper DNS records, MX, SPF, DKIM, to help reduce the possibility of your outbound mail landing in your recipient's spam. It also provides free SSL certificates via Let's Encrypt. Those certificates secure your website, CyberPanel admin page, and your email server with SSL, TLS, and Start TLS. You could even configure multiple users and websites so that each family or team member could manage their own domain records on your server without giving them full access to your virtual private server. In this 4-part series of articles, I'll be stepping through a number of steps and topics to get a basic setup of CyberPanel with Open Lightspeed installed on a RackNerd VPS with Let's Encrypt, securing the website and email server. Here's a full breakdown of the topics that will be covered in the articles and accompanying videos. Part 1. RackNerd Deal of the Day, Virtual Private Servers. Review my VPS specs. RackNerd VPS Operating System Reinstall. Brief CyberPanel Overview. Let's Encrypt SSL Certificate Automated Renewal. Registrar DNS, in my case Google. Config and glue records. Part 2. SSH access to the VPS. Creating a non-root user. Granting that user sudo access, add SSH pub key for passwordless SSH access, confirm SSH and sudo access for non-root user, configure SSH server to not permit root or password-based logins, confirm root cannot log in, update apt repo and upgrade packages on OS, confirm sed is accessible as /usr/bin/sed, install CyberPanel, reboot and log into the CyberPanel UI. Part 3. Update CyberPanel admin account, create a root website for web and email, configure name servers in CyberPanel, review DNS records, run dnschecker.org check, enable SSL on the mail server, create an email account, get email server details for third-party clients like Thunderbird, Outlook, Apple Mail, etc. Test mail using Rainloop Webmail. Run mail-tester.com test on mail server. Configure and test Thunderbird with SSL TLS enabled protocols. Part 4. Create a website for CyberPanel admin UI. Confirm SSL enabled by Let's Encrypt. Add SSL cert to port 8090. Remove the need to use port 8090. Use CyberPanel firewall config to block port 7080. CyberPanel dark mode. WordPress install. And we'll retry the Joomla install. Alrighty, let's get started. Now, during the Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale marathon, I managed to get my hands on a pretty decent deal over at RackNerd.com. for one of their virtual private servers. So I've included a link down in the description below. It is an affiliate link, so I do appreciate you clicking through and taking a look at what they have to offer. I have it loaded up here on the screen. As you'll see on their homepage, they typically will have some sort of a deal of the day. At the time of this recording, it's a 2 gig KVM virtual private server. And if we click there, we can see what actually is included there and what the rates are. So large storage, 2 gig KVM, so 2 CPU cores, 50 gigs of SSD storage, 2 gigs of RAM, and 4 terabytes of monthly bandwidth. Not too bad. $36 a year. That's quite good. It is certainly their deal of the day. Because if we go back and we take a look at their KVM VPSs, let's see here, 2 CPUs, 2 gig of memory, and 4 terabytes. We can take a look down here, 1 gig memory, 2 vCPU. Okay, this looks like the closest. So 2 gigs of memory and 3 CPUs. And that's $20.59 a month. All right, well, let's look at their absolute lowest one here. 512 meg memory, one CPU, and what is this? 500 gig of bandwidth per month. $22.99 a year. See, this is decent, but it's not quite enough to host CyberPanel. If you really want to be working with CyberPanel, you're going to need a minimum of 512 meg of memory just for CyberPanel itself. And then if you're running multiple websites, a variety of other things on there, I mean, this is a virtual private server, you're going to have full root access. You're going to want a bare minimum of 1 gig of memory. So my particular virtual private server, let's take a look here. Let's see here. I have 2.5 gig of memory and a 50 gig disk. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here by reinstalling the OS. Now you do get a variety of OSs to choose from. Now, Alma Linux 8, the 64-bit, that is the replacement for all the CentOS users there. As you can see, there's a note here on CentOS 8 that it is end of life, December 2021, and RackNerd is recommending the use of Alma Linux OS 8 instead. Now, I haven't really been much of a RHEL and CentOS and Alma user for a few years now. Same with Fedora. I do a bit of distro hopping. For the last couple of years, I have been working with Ubuntu-based VMs, particularly because of some aspects of my work. So for my comfort and for this video, we're going to use a 2004 Ubuntu VM. So we'll just select that here and we'll click reinstall. Now it's going to prompt to confirm whether or not you really want to reinstall, because this is going to essentially wipe out any data that was on your system. You're going to get a new root password. Everything's going to be gone. So I'm good with that. I'm going to go ahead and click yes. So it does say that you've got about 10 minutes or so for it to complete, and it does give you the new root admin password. So let's copy that right here. And we want to put that over in our 1Password for later use. So I'm going to edit that off screen here. Now we'll give that a few minutes to get going there. Now, if you're not familiar with CyberPanel, it is a hosting control panel that lets you manage websites, email servers, your DNS entries. It has a one-click installer for WordPress that works really well because it does have Lightspeed Cache, LS Cache, built into the Open Lightspeed web server that we're going to be using here. It has an interesting thing here called Git Manager. It lets you attach a Git repo to one of your websites so that you can update your website based on Git webhooks. I haven't played with that one quite yet. Maybe the topic for a future video. We'll see. Now, one-click SSL is really great here because it leverages Let's Encrypt for the SSL certificates. And for those of you that aren't familiar too much with SSL certificates, you typically need to pay an annual fee for an SSL certificate. Now, this could be worthwhile if you're in a business where you're taking credit cards and you're doing secure transactions and you're concerned about different insurance levels and guarantees that SSL providers can give you based on the type of certificate that you choose to purchase from them. But if you're a hobbyist and you're just doing some basic stuff like most of us home labbers are, then Let's Encrypt is a wonderful way to get your free SSL certificates. Now, the caveat here is SSL certificates are only good for 90 days. With Let's Encrypt and CyberPanel, there are much easier ways to keep that SSL certificate valid. When CyberPanel gets set up, it is going to create a cron job that will check your SSL certificates, and it will get them renewed on a regular basis so that you don't have to worry about that. It is a good idea to keep an eye on it, though, because I have seen in some of the community posts that occasionally people do have issues with their certificates not renewing. And it's simply a matter of logging into CyberPanel and issuing SSL, and you can get that fixed pretty quickly. Now, CyberPanel does have an auto installer for WordPress that seems to work really nice. It mentions Joomla and PrestaShop here, and there's a couple others that we'll take a look at towards the end of the video, but for me, they simply did not work, period. No luck with them. WordPress, golden. If you're a WordPress user and you want a nice, fast virtual private server, something easy to manage, CyberPanel with the Open Lightspeed and LS Cache, great way to go. Now with CyberPanel, you can set up unlimited websites. Of course, the limit is really going to be based on the amount of traffic that you're generating, the amount of content that you're placing on your VPS. So it actually will be limited based on the amount of storage and bandwidth, etc., that you're consuming. You can choose to have different versions of PHP. At the time of this recording, the latest version is 8.0. We'll probably see that a little bit later. Now, if you are setting up your own CyberPanel system for a domain that you're going to be managing and you want the DNS to be managed via CyberPanel, what you'll need to do is go to your domain registrar. In my case, I'm using Google, just standard domains.google.com. And I've got my test domain here, mylab.page. And when you tell Google that you're going to use custom name servers and you try to put in your own ns1.mylab.page, ns2.mylab.page, it's going to give you an issue because right now that server doesn't exist, right? We haven't installed anything. We don't have a DNS server running quite yet. So if I put in the fully qualified domain name, FQDN, of my two name servers here, Google doesn't know how to resolve that because, well, the DNS server doesn't exist yet. So the way to get around that is to go into your global DNS settings. And they actually provided hints that got me to where I needed to be here. And you create these glue records. So these are hard-coded into the Google DNS server so that it knows that ns1.mylab.page and ns2 both go to the IP address of my virtual private server. Now, if you're doing a home-based system and your internet provider gives you a static IP and they actually allow, port 53 to come in for DNS resolution, then you're going to want to make sure that your external IP address is what you specify here. Otherwise, things just aren't going to work right. And of course, you would have to deal with the necessary port forwarding and NATing to get port 53 into the host that you have running CyberPanel. All right, once you've got your glue record set up and your name server specified, you can go back over and get started. Alrighty, that wraps up part 1 of my 4-part series on CyberPanel. I've placed the topics of part 2 on screen here as a reminder of what's coming next. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified of my upcoming videos. I've really enjoyed putting this series together and have learned a lot myself. Hopefully you found it useful as well.